Here we go. Okay, thanks guys for joining us for another Rainforest Writing Retreat book club for writers hosted by Christine Tithridge. Tonight we are analysing a short story by Ray Bradbury called The Veldt. Take it away, Christine.
Yeah, hi everybody. How is everybody tonight? Good. We just covered that. I didn't actually get time to read this, and I read it today. And seriously, it's a shortest of short stories, by Ray Bradbury The Veldt. I found it fascinating. For the era this was actually written. Yeah, right. For the foresight on writing, number one writing technique, the amount of dialogue. I listened to mine on Audible, and it was read like a 1950s radio station thing, and it was brilliant. These guys got to get down there and have a read of it. 23 minutes was not long. Mind you, that was on speed 1.3. I always listen to my stuff faster.
Interestingly, Chris, I think there's been a trend to go back to doing the like radio play style books on Audible. There's quite a few where they have, instead of one narrator, they have a whole cast of narrators.
It was amazing, and that's what happened. It was a few different people actually narrating the whole story. It was brilliant. Well worth having a listen.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Yeah, especially to hear the 50s styling, because it's truly like the things that they say in it is so like, oh yeah, that's the vision of from the 50s, the vision of the future.
Yeah, so, exactly, and that's exactly how I thought of it. And I was texting Charmaine today, and I said my summary of the whole story was a horrific Jetsons style story. It was great. It was really interesting.
Did have that very wholesome American family horror story vibe.
1950s. It was yes father, no father, yes mother. I'm listening to it, and this horror stuff's going on in the background. I'm going, oh my gosh, how can they keep such a straight face when they're are we going to
I'm curious to hear it.
Oh yeah, have a listen. It really is really cool.
We should probably say to listeners, we're analysing the story tonight, so there will be spoilers.
So
if you're wanting to read The Veldt with fresh ears, if you're listening to the audio, or you can read it in paperback or Kindle, the audio is just a nice experience because it does have that cast. But if you are going to listen to it, you might want to go and do that and then come back and watch the rest of this. Otherwise, you could still find out what makes it work as a story and still go and enjoy it. It's up to you.
Yeah. And that's absolutely right. Thank you, Charmaine, for highlighting that, because it is such a short story, and for us to talk about it for an hour, we're going to have to talk about each part of it. And basically it was a story about a family who wanted to go into, what would we say that would be the 30th century, the third century?
I guess.
Yeah, did they mention a year? Did they mention an era in the story?
They did. I don't think they did. I think
sort of like.
I know Ray Bradbury loves his futuristic technology, and he does what I see a lot of science fiction writers do, where they look at events that are happening in the time that are contemporary to their time, and they try to extrapolate how far could this go. So this technological house with the screens and that could be that. And around the time this came out would have been around 1950. Television had just taken off as a family activity. It had been around for a while, but now it was in most people's homes. People were starting to worry, were kids watching too much television? Was it just taking away our imagination because it was providing everything? So he's obviously taken that idea and taken it further.
Gone with it.
Well, I felt the need to Google, and it was apparently first commercially available TVs in the States was 41. So they were really everywhere by the 50s.
They were really in every home by the 1950s.
Everyone would have had a strong opinion one way or the other. So it probably would have been a huge seed for the story. Taking a thing of concern, of course, it's like a hook to the audience, isn't it? To take something that's on people's minds and run it up the flagpole. Him and his automatic houses, but he loved a good automatic house. Because I am a Bradbury nerd, he has written all kinds. One was even Lonely. So where is everybody? You know, like, so, but he loved that idea. Like you said, the Jetsons, he did love it. I don't think he liked Housework or something, because he really had some automatic houses in that 4 or 5 stories.
I know it's a cautionary tale, but I really want one of those houses.
But I found it interesting that the mother said, sorry, Robert?
Just so cool, the technology, the way that you could just get pushed upstairs.
Not even use your legs. I found it very interesting how the mother asked the father if she could turn it off, because she was missing doing housework and cooking, and I'm like, oh my gosh,
what else are we gonna do?
So it was, I found that very, very interesting. But I also
back then too, the idea that technology was going to take over as early as 1950.
It was very right. It was very right. And to go from, as what you guys are saying right now, and to go from what was a small television set, it was only little, to making all of the walls television sets. Well, one big television set. And I think that's what Bradbury does. He takes a simple idea and he explodes it. He takes it so far. He takes it as far as he can do it, and then does a really good job at it. And as we read from what was the name of the book we just read of his? The Zen of
Zen,
with Ray Bradbury. And he was told that he needed to reduce his story, one of his stories, by 30%, took it back, was told he had to reduce it by 30%. This story encapsulates that, because the amount of dialogue, I think there's more dialogue in this story than there was story, like as in narrated story, which I found amazing, because he was able to put a lot of description in there and smell. I mean, we get to a point where they're in Africa from memory.
And you can smell, what was it, the meat thing?
Lion
those
grass
descriptions. And something about the meaty breath, and he writes like that. He writes sort of like there's an awful lot of poem in his stories.
He was a
very
poet,
much with
wasn't he?
With the imagery.
And that's exactly right. But I think he came across this because he had to reduce. That's something we teach at the Rainforest Writing Retreat, is especially writing short story, is take out, and Gina, our extraordinaire editor here, is a slasher.
Slasher, you got to get those words out.
But it's really, 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 really important to be able to emphasize such a good story. And it was, I mean, I had an idea what the ending was going to be, but gosh, he wrote that in the 50s. That would never, I know we all say that stories have been written before. I don't think that story had ever been written before in the 50s. Ever.
I like the structure he used, because it's science fiction quite often was horror then too, because from the early 1900s, when we had first science fiction sort of stories in Western society, we have that fear of it as well. So initially all science fiction is mostly horror, and it has got that horror because it's got that foreshadowing with the psychiatrist recalling the interview at the beginning, so something went wrong, and then it goes through the backstory of the science fiction style of it and comes back to the inevitable horror ending, where there's so many ways these people didn't need to die in there, but of course they go in there, but of course they because they tell the kids their plan and not to turn the lights off.
But with my modern parent brain, I went, you guys deserve that. Turn the damn thing off and be tough.
Did anyone
off
else
the screen.
So
not for one more minute.
Did anyone else
I was cheering
the children might actually be part of the house? Because initially in his interview, he insisted he didn't have children.
Was no children.
And they bought this fancy house, and now there's children, I'm wondering if the children are actually part of the house. They come with the house.
I actually thought that at the beginning, then forgot about it. That's you're
and then
absolutely
that's
right.
why they are their loyalty, because obviously there's a lot of betrayal in here, but their loyalty is actually to the house, not to these people.
I actually thought they were going to be AI bots.
Yeah, well, I wonder if they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
That was interesting. That's interesting. But when the kids just said 1 more minute, I mean, that's a kid thing to say. So
Yeah.
he's taken a lot of
Yeah.
like, just don't go in there. Not 1 more minute. That was foreshadowing for all us readers to go.
Yeah,
Don't do it.
not one
Listen
more
to your
minute.
children.
Just flick that switch.
Just flick
Pull
that
out the
switch.
fuse. Yeah. Just
Yeah.
Don't go in the room
She's
full of
froze.
lions.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Don't do that. If you know there's zombies there or whatever, don't go there.
Yeah.
But they did anyhow.
Don't open the
we
door.
do that. All stories, you walk into the thing. You walk
Yeah.
in. Don't go in there, but you do. Yeah.
I think that
But I have to say,
what
I was very
also
impressed
liked.
because sorry.
Yeah, you're right. You go.
No, it's all right. No, I was just going to say, as a world building nerd, I loved that by the time he got in my copy to the first 3 little dots, the first scene break, the world was built. Like in a bit of dialogue and a couple of paragraphs. You had everything. They cracked the code of the world and went, that's really clever, because we can wobble on a little bit and get very descriptive when it comes to world building, but he gets to it really quickly.
Really quickly.
Yeah.
I read another one of his,
And
and
I
you
got
went
the
dialogue, and it was the
like,
same.
Yeah, Raylene.
The Star Trek hologram and B5
holodeck thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was
I
just
think
like the holodeck.
Even though it was television, you also see that influence of radio coming through by the announcer's voice is very radio driven. So you see that early television was very sort of radio driven still.
It's just
with
radio with pictures, yeah.
And I think it's also him noticing about this need to keep buying things to do stuff. So it's the technology that's going to make us lazy, because then they just started going out. They were drinking too much. They were not actually taking care of the kids. She's worried, and she says, "Have you seen the nursery?" And he says, "I went there last week." They're not even looking after these children.
They left them home by themselves at one point.
I think he might have also been touching on a bit of like consumerism, because we had the Great Depression. You didn't buy anything. You took care of stuff. You redid stuff. But 1950, that's all in the past. We've forgotten about the lessons we should have learned by Wall Street falling, and we're all now splurging and buying products for everybody. Christmas is a time to just go and buy a lot of products, which is quite topical now. But yes, I think it's that cautionary tale for that as well.
Yeah,
that's so true. That's so true. Who thought that they were going to get eaten?
Oh yeah, I thought they were going to get eaten.
Yeah,
for sure.
They got eaten.
There was a line in your lounge room. You're getting eaten.
Pardon, Robert?
Something was going to happen. I mean, when lions are involved.
Most of his short stories don't end with they lived happily ever after either.
No HEA. But I really love the short story. It's just, that was really, really, really good. I'd read that again and again and again.
I'm on my second time through with it, and because I thought I'll read it this time, not just go I love it, and look at it and scratch some notes on it, because last time I read it I was really wrapped up in the story and I didn't really think about it much. But this time through I thought he's taken that thing you said, like he was writing almost poetry, and his descriptions are really short. So if you can get a 2-word thing, like he's written just tiny things like it was like and then he's put a pebble, a piece of straw. So he's, presuming that where was it? It's something about I stood in the center of the room, the crystalline distance. It seemed like Africa, and then it says, and the colors were. So he's presuming we know what Africa looks like. So let's not just go on and on about that. And then he's gone. Then there was a final pebble or a piece of straw, and in the yellow sun. So he just took little bits, and it's just 6 words rather than 5 paragraphs. So he could write so briefly because of the way he did description, which was essentially giving us credit, wasn't it, for knowing things already.
which is what we need to learn as a writer, right?
Yeah. And his word choice, where he says, yellow hot Africa, this bake oven with murder in the heat, like he's setting up.
He's foreshadowing.
Tension kept rising too. And I think the foreshadowing, actually, this has made me realize reading this, for the judging of the Oriellas doing the short stories for horror, what's missing in a lot of them is that foreshadowing at the beginning, which means what you're having is a normal day going on until something happens. And if you look at horror, it usually has a foreshadow, and then you can have quiet for a little bit because the reader will stick with you. And even in the films, like if you look at Scream or any of the slasher flicks, there's always a girl murdered right in the opening credits. And then we go on for a bit and we start to just feel ominous for a while. But you
feel
can't
safe.
you can't just have ominous. You've got to have stuff happen. And he does that. He has that foreshadow that tells us something went really wrong.
Something's wrong in the nursery,
They tried to hint that George has just gone mad. So I guess so that we'll think he survives. But yeah, so we have that foreshadow, and then we can listen to they bought a house. The kids have moved in, and we're not bored because we know something's going to happen. And I just think he really mastered structure of short stories. You know, he put the little hints, or like, oh, George, was your wallet in the room? Why was your wallet in the nursery? Obviously, to give the lines a scent. And I think Lydia heard someone else scream at one stage.
That sounded familiar. I love that. The scream sounded familiar.
I was wondering, does the machine actually let them know what their screams would sound like? Or is this connected to some other family somewhere else that are getting murdered at the moment? I
thought that they said the machine would connect with the children's psychology and give them whatever they desired. So I think that was them playing the let's kill mummy and daddy with lions game. And the room made a couple of parents. That's what I feel, that they were projected and screamed, and they went, yeah, that was good. Let's do that for real. Or it's skitzed, and the room went, oh, well, there's lions and there's some people that look like mum and dad. But I think the children programmed the scream because they said they could tap into it, didn't they? Or something about it being psycho. There was all those wonderful words that psychologists used. I thought they were hilarious. Some of the words were just the best.
And one thing I wouldn't be doing with this story, if I looked over it now, there'd be nothing for me. Excuse me, my voice is almost gone now. There'd be nothing for me to cut. It's all relevant. There's no waffle. He's cut it down. He's shaped it really nicely to build up to this story.
The only thing that pauses me is right at the beginning when he said he didn't have two children. That never got answered. And I don't feel like I
Where'd you say that?
Got that answer right at the beginning. He said he didn't have children. Yeah, he said, I don't have two children. Yeah, it was probably in the first paragraph.
Yeah.
So
that's why I wondered if they were actually.
That's probably my only criticism.
I'm going to say I quite like it.
I remembered seeing
I
that.
like it too.
It's making me wonder.
Yeah, and try to ask some questions of ourselves. You're very high. Now thinking about it, that's probably the only thing that I would question. What was that about? And to me, that would be brilliant foreshadowing if there was a number 2 to this story. If there was a Veldt 2.
I'm still trying to figure out where they said there was no children.
Right at the beginning. I don't have the book.
With the psychiatrist, and he's recalling his interview with George. And he said he continued to deny that. He said, I don't have children. But eventually George accepted that these children were his.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. In the psychiatrist notes at the beginning.
I also wonder, my other question is,
I might have a different version of that. Yeah, because I've got just the one that I was given. Yeah.
Did you listen to the? Oh, you didn't listen to the audio. Have a listen to the audio because it's right at the beginning of the audio.
Maybe your beginning's been cut off.
Yeah, I've got a version of it that's come through from Gothic Digital Press at the University of Southern California. So
it might have been, maybe that question's been asked over the last 50, 70 years. Sorry.
maybe it's added in. Yeah, maybe
And
it's
they took it
added in.
out.
Yeah, because where my version of the story starts is just the family dynamics. Yeah, it's just
no,
and
there's a whole
it starts
little,
with George.
yeah.
I wish you'd look at the nursery. That's the first
No.
words.
Okay, yeah,
There's a lot missing.
You're missing like a little bit at the beginning. A psychiatrist comes on and he talks about his client George and you know what went wrong. And at the end, he comes back again.
I'll have to
and
see
talks
because
about
that's
how he believes that the lions were not real, but he does believe they ate George.
Sorry.
that's so weird. That's just so typical.
That's
of Bradbury.
psychologist. That's psychologist talk,
Yeah.
or I don't know.
They were not
That's
real lions, they
interesting.
were virtual, but they did eat him, yes.
Yes. Maybe he was a Willy Wonka and he was a bot too. I don't know.
Yeah.
I ate him.
Maybe he was
I
just
don't
a sub player in the game as well. I don't know, in the computer's game.
Maybe the government didn't like, you know, a family that are middle class. He says, I'm working, you know, this is why we work so hard. And they didn't raise children. So they said, no, we need this. We need to rectify this, make these people raise children because they're earning too much money not to.
Do you think that they brainwashed them? They brainwashed them to make them think that they had children and they weren't actually their children. But it also makes me wonder, because they were back in the days when there was Alice in Wonderland. Why were they in Africa? I know you said it was an analysis of their mind. Why did they hate their parents that much?
I thought you meant why Africa. I was going to say, I think because it's very primitive and barbaric compared to the super technology of America, you know.
But if you listen to the way that these children talk, you would think they were just the cookie cutter children from a 50s house.
Yeah.
You know,
that our house might have created.
Yeah, that's right. But why? That's true. And that would make more sense. But in my mind at the moment, why wouldn't they be going down the rabbit hole?
Yeah, they did mention that too, that they'd gone from, you know, but at the time in the 50s, only because my family immigrated, Africa was really popular. It was in the literature. If kids were thinking they were going to have the ultimate adventure, they were going to go to the African jungle and be with Tarzan or be on the thing or look at lions or look at elephants. So a lot of kids would have gone, I'm not a baby anymore. I don't want to listen to Alice in Wonderland. I want to read about Africa. It was a big deal because they were exploiting, you know, it was that fashion in that 40s and 50s to go to the far exotic, wherever it is. I want to say east, but that's not right. But, you know,
Yeah. Interesting.
That is interesting because, like, you're right. And I think it might have been because there was a real influx of comic books during that era. And I think that, you know, you've got Tarzan, but also the Phantom was sort of Africa as well and was very popular. So, I mean, obviously, first Tarzan was a novel and that was early 1900s. I don't know the date, sorry. But the comic book might have influenced a lot of people. And then probably in the 30s and 40s, it would have been Egypt because Agatha Christie really pushed Egypt a lot as a tourist destination to solve a murder or be murdered or whatever. But yeah, you might be right. It might have been the influence of comic books.
Really, he needed a lion. He wrote the story. He says, these kids are going to be fascinated with Africa this week because I need a lion for my story. I do a bit of that.
I loved it. I loved the automation of the house and how they described it and explained it. And you look at our life now and it's not far off the mark.
It's really quite prophetic, isn't it?
Oh, wow.
Did anyone notice the children were called Wendy and Peter?
Yes.
Peter Pan.
That.
It's like that was
and they were essentially in Neverland, weren't they? They were in another place.
It's almost a fractured fairy tale, right?
Yeah. I wonder what.
And the lines could have been Captain Hook. I was going to say Dr. Hook.
All the dangerous things.
He was the artist because it was that very wholesome American family, and they had the wholesome American family names like, you know, George and Lydia and who was the artist? Rockefeller? No, not Rockefeller. He's the
I can't remember, but
they used to do those in the 1950s, very wholesome American
Yeah.
scenes, like in diners and things.
Can you please pass the salt, dear?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. That's how they speak.
They were really, they were very plummy for, their American accents were so different to what we're used to.
Yeah.
But even the children were like that, which makes me second guess why they wanted to kill their parents. I mean, it was premeditated murder.
And I still think it was children. You know, when children watch TV, they don't realize that they think you're just going to pop back up again once you get hit by the anvil. So they were saying that was the effect. I think that down deep was the effect of television on little minds. They're going, oh yeah, well we hate you right now. We hate mum and dad. Let's kill them with a lion. And they go, oh, because kids might do a thing that they see on TV.
Yeah.
And that might have been a bit of a dialogue about the effect the TV was having on kids in the 50s, maybe, you know. Maybe there was a little outcropping of violence that was mimicked from what was on the television, you know.
Also, I don't remember the psychology behind it. Actually, I think I do, but the sort of ultra polite thing in horror, it's really interesting when you see little kids being nice, you know, down that hallway, a little British kid going, father.
Exactly. Yes. But I think Damien was like that too, wasn't he?
Very polite.
Very polite.
It's also a strategy. And it's like any animals where they substitute, you know, where some animals will leave their young for someone else to raise, another animal to raise, another species like birds, and there's some small mammals that do it. It's a strategy to look vulnerable so that the mother will take care of you. You know, that's why babies or young animals tend to have bigger eyes and things to make the parent sort of just have that feeling for them. So it might have all been strategy. I did just look up because that name was in my head. It was Norman Rockwell. The Norman Rockwell.
You're close.
The American.
Yeah. I wonder.
$1 million.
I wonder if Robert's not far from the truth here. I wonder if the children have always been psychopaths, and this is a psychiatric thing, and they've brought these two people in who might not even be married, who they've brainwashed to put in there because the last parents have just been eaten. And this is a new set of parents.
There
you go.
And they could be thinking, I wonder if this can happen again. It's happened once. Could it happen again?
You might be on the
part
right
of the house.
There,
If they are part of the house and George threatened to turn the house off, then their question is about survival.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
that's true too. You're right, Riley.
Could also be like Star Trek. There was an episode where I think it's Moriarty becomes sentient.
Okay. In the holodeck,
Yes. So sentient non-reality being sort of is a bit of a trope throughout sci-fi.
Like Odyssey 2000, is that what it's called, with Hal
Hal goes slave to his own logic.
Alien with that guy that I can't remember his name, sorry, the guy that works on Alien, spoiler, sorry, it turns out he's an android. And that whole thing of where they will do anything for you, but they get to that point where it's self-preservation. Like Hal didn't want to go back because he knew he's going to be in a lot of trouble. So decided to blow up. You know, and the AI is designed to help you, but then it has that thing trigger in it where it's like, this might get me in trouble. I might do something else now.
Too true. Interesting. And that could be the house.
Didn't the psychologist mention that they installed the nursery to help the children get over some kind of mental malady or something? I don't. And he says, malady. What if I don't turn it off because they need the nursery because the nursery's healing them or something?
Yeah.
I mean,
Something like
people. How many more bells do you need ringing before you?
Yeah. I wonder if he was a closet psychologist. Ray Bradbury, I'm talking about.
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
I think
he had a very interesting way of
orthodox.
looking at people, didn't he? Like when I listened to the Zen and the art, he really watched people and just wrote down random words chains around them, and then something else festered up out of the observations. He was a big observer.
So true. I well done, Ray Bradbury. That was just absolutely amazing. Great story. I really enjoyed it.
I might say goodbye now.
Okay.
But good to see you all.
Yeah,
too,
we
Robert.
might actually end the recording here, and we can keep chatting everyone else. But I might end the recording here because I feel like we've gone to the extent of the story. So join us next time. Next one will be in January for our book club for writers. We'll post up on the Facebook page what book that's going to be, unless you already know that, Christine. No, that's right.
We'll post it
up. Oh, okay. We'll post it up on the Facebook page, and you'll get plenty of notice. But join us. It's always a lot of fun to analyse these. And we next Rainforest Writing Retreat is in June
21st to 23rd.
Oh, good. 21st
of June.
23rd of June. And it is writing for children and young adults. So it'll be a really interesting event if you can make it. Check us out online. Bye for now.
Bye.